A very special day, a memorable day, a day that we have in this room waited a long time to see. A day of retribution and comeuppance against this man, Mr. Martin William Hill. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, will you please all welcome the Honourable, almost impeccably so, Lord Justice Crane.
Send them down.
There are a few members of the jury who couldn't be with us today. The Cowleys, the Wrights actually, the Hubbards. Sensitive members of the jury, I think you would think. But they'll all be raising glasses in anticipation of a custodial sentence of the defendant today.
I'm truly delighted to be acting as prosecution in this case against Mr. Martin Hill. The case to prove is in fact the defendant is not worthy of being a husband. He's not suitable as a husband. Order. Members of the public gallery, family, I must warn you, this will be a dark assessment. It will prove disturbing and troubling at times.
All for it.
You may hear testimonies that you wish you'd never been party to. And ultimately, you will never look at this man the same again.
My name is Andy Oliver. I have the enviable task of trying to defend this.
I always said you're a good lad.
Mr. Hill, I'll be perfectly honest. I've seen the evidence. Watertight, concrete, indefensible indeed. I gave most of it. But we must at least go through a true and proper process to secure a conviction.
As is well known in the wedding statutes of the north of England, the birthplace of Miss Jessica Hill, to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Martin fails a future hubby test, there are 3 tests that must be considered. He must have good prospects, he must be refined, and he must be macho. Or in the parlance of the defendant, the cash test, the flair test, and the fit test. Turning to the first of these tests, having good prospects. Every parent wants to know their child will be safe and well looked after when they go into the big wide world. Your Honour, I suggest to this court that Mr. Hill has yet to fully settle on a career. He remains in a state of confusion and flux and is not yet able to provide the requisite security. For instance, some of you may know that Martin has tried modelling. You may laugh and snigger. And you'd be right to laugh. However, he was once considered by the international men's underwear retailer Pierre Cardin to model their Y-fronts. Sadly, they concluded he didn't have the complete package. But they were kind enough to provide a lifetime supply of Pierre Cardin pants, which continues to model today. Martin has also tried comedy. As many of you know, Martin has worked as a stand-up for a few years, touring the country's working men clubs and other such venues. A brave profession, you might say. I hate to admit, but he was quite successful. Gigged at the Edinburgh Festival and the Comedy Store in London. Indeed, Mr. Hill shared the stage with some of the country's finest new stand-ups. Josh Widdicombe, Jack Whitehall, amongst others. Sadly, they're all now too famous and successful. In the end, as we've just witnessed, Martin has put comedy on the back burner. Dark, dark place, locked away, never to be seen again.
Your Honour, yes, the defendant has had a couple of false starts, and perhaps he peaked too early in his role as assistant bar manager at the bingo hall in Colville. When I say assistant bar manager, yeah, no grandeur here. There are only 2 members of staff. One was his boss.
Very good place.
Right. He's since moved on into law. His legal brain is second to none. He loves nothing more than a hard, long drafting session. Ideally in a hot room with no natural light. Having trained in Rags and Birmingham, he moved to London, then on to BP and now Angel Trains. But I think you will agree with me, this choice of career is exceptionally clever for 2 key reasons. Number 1, as a youth, Mr. Hill sported a rather splendid centre parting. One might have called it curtains back in the day. Sadly, the double crown and eroding hairline has put paid to that. And it is only a matter of weeks, if not days, before we leave the whole thing gone. However, in qualifying as a barrister, he can now wear a wig. A very shrewd move. 2, Mr. Hill has been able to combine his legal career with his first true love in life. Trains, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Hill is an avid spotter of trains. As a child, he could name every Thomas the Tank engine by the toot of their engine alone. And now he lives near Clapham Junction, which everyone who's not in London is actually the busiest train station in Europe, I believe. The mecca for a train enthusiast. He's often... Anyway, I think you would agree that his prospects are questionable, but he has at least made the best with a limited hand.
Moving to the second test, Your Honour, being refined.
Yeah, I've heard.
The culture of refinement means being well bred, free from impurity, polished. The defendant is perhaps some, but probably none of these. You certainly can't polish Mr. Hill. For example, no refined man should be able to eat a whole KFC family bucket on his own, including coleslaw and Viennetta, use an ironing board as his table for 3 years, however, the most blatant lack of refinement came at a recent excursion some of the boys had. Let's call it the stag do. Whilst the bridesmaids wished Jessica to the party capital of Europe, Mr. Hill was treated to a day at the races, Newmarkets and the 2014 Guineas Festival. The defendant chose to drink all refurbishments from a shoe. From a shoe. A shiny black leather shoe recently purchased from a charity shop. But more alarming than this, as he went on to teach the entire racing public a new technique of long arming. Now, not everyone in this audience is familiar with long arming. It's an interesting pastime, and sometimes a bit messy. And quite often, the best way to describe these things is a quick demonstration. So if the ushers could just charge their glasses. Charge your glasses and be upstanding, please, ushers. On the count of 3, if you could demonstrate a long arm by drinking your drink.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Honour, I'm appalled. Truly appalled. I can only apologise for the lack of class that Mr. Hill has demonstrated here. However, I do believe that he can, on occasion, exhibit a desire to be seen as classy.
The red.
Salmon flavoured trousers have certainly never been seen in Colville Massive, I'm sure. Exactly. And as a kid, your first trip away from home, I'm led to believe, you went away and you came home and your bag was perfectly packed. Everything was neatly packed. Your mother, who had brought you up to be such a nice young child, was over the moon. But then they found out he hadn't unpacked at all. He'd worn the same clothes all week. However, this effort to be refined isn't necessarily required all the time. Ultimately, as everyone in this room will know, a marriage of two people is about understanding and embracing each other's positives and deficiencies. And that's what my wife tells her friends. In the spirit of this, it is claimed that the new Mrs. Hill, yes, your bride, ladies and gentlemen, has been seen long-arming in the ship at Wandsworth. I am not going to embarrass her and ask her to admit to such.
Oh yeah, you do.
However, it would suggest to me that the truth of the matter is that neither of our special couple are 100% refined all the time, and therefore might just be right for one another.
I turn to the final test, being macho. Being a fine specimen of a man, attractive to the opposite sex. I'll be honest with you here, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. The evidence is directly in front of your eyes. Despite his ginger affliction, the defendant likes to portray a butch and domineering appearance. And he'll regularly invite Jessica to the guns show, whereby he flexes his biceps and pecs. Sadly, this all too often leaves Jessica disappointed, holding her ticket stubs and seeking a refund. In fact, Jess once asked me if Martin was a bit of a player at university. I can only assume she was seeking evidence of a macho past, perhaps a brighter history. She inquired of me if Martin was the centre of attention amongst women, if he broke hearts, if he pulled women at will, if women dropped at his feet. Well, no, of course they didn't. But there was this one time, he held hands with the girl at a nightclub. And when I say held hands, there's more of propping her up. Not because she was drunk though, it was her limitations arising from orthopaedic footwear and a broken arm that made her unsteady. So whilst that may make her a nice person, him a nice person, albeit preying on the vulnerable, it certainly didn't make her attractive, or explain her facial hair. And I'm not sure that qualifies him as being macho and attractive to the opposite sex.
Learned colleague, the question you pose is too narrow. If indeed you ask, is Martin attractive to any sex? I can cite at least 4 occasions when Mr. Hill has in fact pulled a feather. I take the call back to Bangkok, October. Mr. Hill had just started a 5-month travelling adventure. It did not start to plan. On day 1, Martin can only be described as being picked up by a local lad. You might be imagining here a bit of a cliche Thai ladyboy-esque. You'd be right. It did nearly succumb to their powers in Bubbles nightclub in Chiang Mai, Hodgkins U2. But this instance is far worse. This story is about Martin and a man that looked like a man by the name of Sun Chi. Sun Chi was our tour guide for the day. A local lad. He took a shine to Martin. Martin's biggest mistake was to wear the t-shirt of his favourite band, Right Said Fred. With Sun Chi, and their eyes met. Anyway, a day of the city sights and casual flirting ensued for Martin. And it got towards the end of the day, and payment started to raise its ugly head. But Sun Chi was after payment in kind by this stage. On the bus back to our hotel, Martin took one for the team when he allowed Sunshi to caress his knee. And all Martin could say was, "Thank you for a lovely day." Sunshi then asked Martin to go disco with him. He ran away, and I think we hid for 24 hours before we left Bangkok. So, I would suggest that Mr. Hill can be attractive to some people.
Your Honour, ladies and gents of the jury, to sum up, I'm fairly confident that despite the best efforts of the defence, we do have a safe ground for prosecution. That this follically challenged train spotter of a man doesn't pass even the basic tests of manliness.
My learned colleague, I must stop you again. One final crucial piece of information has come to light, and I need to call one witness to the stand. The impeccably honourable Chief Justice Crane. Sir, remember that you are under oath, please.
I'm under oath.
It is alleged that you and the defendant have been seen enjoying a spot of mantai. Ponding in a jacuzzi with some mulled wine in the outreaches of Canada. Now, it is not this court's position to question what happened in these certain rendezvous. However, it is clearly undermining the impartiality of this court. Is this true, sir?
This is true.
I call for an immediate cancellation of this case. Mr. Hill, I would suggest you're a very lucky man.
I'm appalled but not surprised. That is indeed inexcusable and inexplicable. I withdraw the case. In all seriousness, and I will be serious here for a moment, Jessica, I think everyone will agree that you look absolutely stunning today. You and Martin are absolutely fantastic together, and undoubtedly he is happiest when he is with you. Martin has been a great friend for very many years, and we are delighted to see you both as a couple and married today.
Tino, I'll say about the same thing, but you've been a brilliant, incredible friend for 15 years. Uni, travelling, cricket, and now you are godfather to my little boy. Jess, you're just the loveliest, most beautiful person, and if possible, I think you might have improved Martin for us, so thank you very much. Steve and I know I speak for everybody in the room, wish you the greatest happiness for your lives together. And we really look forward to seeing what the future has to bring. So, on that, I just ask everyone to stand as we toast the bride and groom. Bride and groom.
Before I dismiss this court, can I pronounce the sentence? And in that hot tub, might I add, I saw the wood from the trees. I would like to pronounce a sentence of, be happy for the rest of your bloody lives.